We're going to talk to the real John Wick today, or at least one of the men who helped make Wick a reality. Today we have special guest Aaron Cohen, and he has an incredible background that includes serving as a former Special Operations Commando, celebrity bodyguard, tactical weapons instructor, and he's also the only American to serve in a secret Israeli commando unit that infiltrated terrorist cells inside hotbed territory. He is a seasoned martial artist with over 35 years of experience, holds multiple black belts, trains SWAT teams in active shooter and counter-terrorist responses, and now you can find him in Hollywood not only as an actor, but also as a tech advisor training other actors in tactical weapons and fighting for film, including Keanu Reeves. And he's with us today to give us a behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to make John Wick and other movie combat work. And as a treat, also joining us today is Mr. Zak, which some of you may know as White Belt Zak or Professor Bull from previous episodes. So to start off with, why don't you tell us a little bit about your work in film, the stunt training, the coordination, and the work that you do with action films?
Well, I started off as a technical advisor and a tactical weapons trainer in film about 12 years ago. My first movie was a film called 𝗘𝗖𝗡𝗧𝗏, which was directed by the Oscar-winning director Steven Soderbergh, and it starred Gina Carano, Channing Tatum, Michael Fassbender, Ewan McGregor, Antonio Banderas, Michael Douglas. It was an all-star cast that they'd assembled, and it was really it was right after Gina had lost her first big fight, and Steven had approached her to do a film. He saw her in a cage, and he thought, wow, what an interesting concept, having a woman, a female warrior blasting in a cage. And Gina really had set the tone, I think, for women in mixed martial arts. There's been many after her, but she was one of the first to come up. And Steven had contacted me. This was back in 2010, and he said, I'm doing an action film, and I'm looking for some new blood. I hadn't been in the film space at all. Since the military and since I got out, I'd primarily been working as a celebrity bodyguard, bouncing all over the world, protecting, artists on tour. And I lived in Brad Pitt's house for about a year and a half out of the military. I was in the Israel Defense Forces, and got a call from Steven Soderbergh and said he's looking for a tech advisor and someone to train up his actors and, just to kind of help advise on the script. And, I thought that was really cool. And I grew up in LA before moving to Israel to do the Army. So I'd been around the business all my childhood. My parents were writers and directors, and jumped on and ended up spending about 3 months training up the cast in everything that I knew, which was, from Krav Maga, which is a big part of my training diet from the military. And I can talk about what I think is some of the disconnects between Krav taught here and how it's taught in the Army in Israel. And weapons, pistol and subgun and AR and room clearing and room entry and shooting from vehicles. And this was all based on the script. I just looked at it and I tried to take a common sense approach. And I said, all right, what do the actors need to be able to do in terms of the script to be able to function and pull it off and make it look real? So I started off as a tech advisor and tactical trainer. I was also brought in to train Keanu Reeves for the John Wick franchise, which is, I don't know, it's probably coming up on $1 billion now. That was a favor for the stunt coordinator who called me up. I'd done another film with him just after 𝗘𝗖𝗡𝗏𝗧𝗏, doing stunts and doing some acting. I got bit by that acting bug early on. Steven had put me in 𝗘𝗖𝗡𝗏𝗏. He goes, you're playing this guy. And I went, okay. And I had an amazing time. I'd always loved theater. I served in a special unit in the Israel Defense Forces that required being able to blend in with the environment, being able to dress and look like locals, being able to speak functional Arabic. And that was the best way to describe that was my Juilliard, if you will, except there's no, cutting back to one when you're in the field. You got to really be convincing. And even if it's for a very short period of time, Israel had really perfected plainclothes operations, just how you deal with terrorism. And so I ended up working with the stunt coordinator on John Wick on another film called Get the Gringo with Mel Gibson, which you'll see me in getting my eyeball blown out. We shot that in Veracruz, Mexico. I think I got electrocuted by some of the squibs. Pretty sure my leg kept shaking because one of the wiring didn't cut out. That's the nature of stunts. And then he'd called me up and said, "Hey, Cohen, I need you to come in and spend some time with Keanu, and whatever you want to work on, just work on." So ended up being selected with a handful of instructors to come in and kind of dump him with everything that we knew. And, you know, it's an honor. You've got 𝗘𝗫𝗖𝗘𝗧𝗘𝗡𝗦𝗑. You've got some of the top stunt guys in the world who come from 𝗘𝗫𝗖𝗘𝗃𝗏𝗏. There's a bunch of that floating around Hollywood, which, you know, very similar signature to American kenpo or Chinese style kenpo. And ended up working with Keanu on John Wick 2. Had a role in that one too, played an assassin, and ended up sort of graduating from tech advising and tactical training into starting to look at different ways that I could put together choreography based on my martial arts background, which we'll get into, to try and add my own flavor. And that's the really cool thing about movies, man, is that you don't know where the genesis is when you look at these films, but when you start to study them with a closer eye, you can really see the different signatures of the different styles that get woven in. Ended up working with Keanu on John Wick. The director, man, 𝗘𝗫𝗖𝗘𝗧𝗏𝗪 is incredible. He's probably one of the finest martial artists I've ever seen move. You know, this is a guy who's got 30 active stunt guys who can probably knock every one of them out. He was Keanu's double on The Matrix for all of them. And when John Wick came around, obviously, you know, him and Keanu partnered up, and it was really cool to get to watch him finally get his day. The stunt coordinator also, J.G. Perry, who's the one who called me in. Multiple Taekwondo champion, also an Army vet. And so started out tech advising and tactical training, and then quickly got hit with the acting bug. And since then, I've done about 6 or 7 films acting, and I've got a new one coming out with Antonio Banderas, which I think will be out in the fall. And I believe it's either called The Enforcer, or they may be calling it Barracuda. And believe it or not, I'm an LA Jew trained in Israel, playing a Miami Cuban, and we shot it in Greece. So get ready for that. So I've been acting and chipping away at that, but I hold my roots very strong in the tactical world and in the fight building and fight choreo world, as I've begun to train my own stunt team for my acting projects. So having done all these great action films with these awesome directors and working with these great stunt guys and some of the best fight choreo guys, I've been able to start to build up my own signature, which you'll see in my fight reel, which I'm sure you'll be able to cut to at some point so people can have a look. That style is gun-jitsu, which I'm sure we'll dive into, which I started developing about 12 years ago on Haywire with Gina, which was, how do I take Aikido and all these different styles that I train in, and how do I start putting the guns in? How do we start creating something different and something new? And that's the cool thing about action films. You got to always keep pushing this thing. And I think John Wick does a great job of that. So really cool to be a part of that. How I got hooked up with the John Wick franchise was I ended up getting a call from the stunt coordinator, and he called me up and he said, he goes, "Hey man," he goes, "I need you to come down and load up Keanu with everything that you got." I said, "Cool." And he goes, "He needs to spend as much time with you as possible. You're the closest thing to John Wick as far as the military stuff, and he'll be able to soak up a lot of that behavior and your personality. You know, so bring it and hoof him, and he'll like it, he'll love it. You know, Keanu's a serious martial artist, but he needs to spend as much time with the real thing as possible. And you'll see that with that core of instructors, man. These are all, you know, it's an elite group of guys that were brought in. So, you know, and we're all grateful, man, to get to work on the film. But part of it was Keanu soaking up as much of my military as possible to kind of feel my intensity. A good actor knows how to take that and kind of steal it. So I like to believe that, you know, that helped inform his character.
So it's safe to say that you're the real John Wick.
It's safe to say that I'm the real fake John Wick for the film. But I certainly have more operations than the average trainer, if you will.
Did you find any unexpected adjustments coming from an actual tactical experience when coming into movies? Is there anything that you have to adjust versus, you know, change things to look more flashy and better on camera that might not be as realistic?
Yes. I can answer that question with 2 different pieces. There are several things that I had to change coming from the military into film. One, as a trainer, I absolutely destroyed my actors. I mean, if Tom Cruise thinks he was rough on this new cast, putting them in F-18s for 3 months, what I did to Gina and Channing on Haywire, which was my first movie, is probably very comparable. I put them through 3 months of really tough counter-terror grade training, but you can see it on camera, but I kicked their asses and have since probably had to dial or scale down the intensity of the training because you can't break the actors. And with action films, you want to try and not lean on doubles because it's more believable when you can get actors who are performing their own action. And Gina was brought on because she's a professional fighter. And but I could smoke Gina, and I did. And she, smoked me a few times. We were sparring and I looked at my leg one day and it looked like a giant bruised banana. And the reason why is because she's got a Muay Thai kick. When she drops it, you're getting thumped, respectfully. The other thing you have to dial, you have to change the frequency on for camera is the circles and the movement have to be bigger. And when you train in martial arts, and Dan, you know this from Kenpo and white belt Zak, this from getting thumped by Dan in Kenpo.
Oh yeah.
The movements, and I'll use Kenpo because I know you have a Kenpo heavy audience here. Typically in martial arts, everything tends to be a little tighter and smaller. The cool thing about Kenpo is you have different size Kenpos and they'll adjust. If you got a guy like Juan Serrano, who I train with, who's awesome, Casa del Kenpo, Juan's circles are bigger and he has to make that adjustment because he's smaller or he's shorter. On camera, things need to be bigger. And so it's the antithesis of what works, meaning you want to get, if you're using point of origin striking as an example in Kenpo, you want everything blasting as quick as you can and everything tighter and smaller because it's going to give you more economy in the motion. The camera doesn't necessarily like that. The camera needs to see things moving. So the trick is, and one of the hard pieces is, and you'll see in my fight reel when you roll it, by the way, my goal, I will be bringing Kenpo back to film. I absolutely love it. I love the lines. I love the movement. I love the hip work. I love point of origin. I love showing all of the gorgeous, I call it pretty Krav Maga, except Chuck Sullivan's version, who I train with, that's dirty, pretty Krav Maga. Chuck's a little more nasty with his Kenpo, with the IKCA stuff, which I really like. The circles have to be bigger. And the reason why is because as you're looking at me in this frame right now, you have to fill that frame. And the eye, there's an algorithm to what the eye likes. And if you can't see what's really happening, then you're forced to insert to close-ups and closer coverage. And if you look at something like the Bourne series, there's a lot of cutting going on around Damon, which is to make up for his lack of ability as a martial artist. So as you move quick, no disrespect to Damon, he's one of the finest actors out there, but he'll tell you he's an actor first and not a martial artist, or a martial artist second or third. The less cutting you do, the more organic the feel is in the frame. And so the lines have to be bigger. The tricky part is that you have to be able to continue or have the same continuity with the speed. When you speed things up on camera in post or in editing, you can smell it. And you can smell the deception. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes CGI anymore. They're all sick of it. So it's all about practical. And when you're talking about real actors who are martial artists also, there was a practicality to what they did. For instance, Bruce could move really quickly, but he knew how to perform. He knew how to open everything up a little bit, or at least that's how I interpret his movement. And so, yeah, you got to move a little bit bigger, sometimes a lot bigger, and without diminishing the speed and the power. But you also have to do that with a very high level of control. You're not going to last in Hollywood if you backhand an actor. As a stuntman, I personally don't care. I like it. I don't mind getting whacked around. That's just from the military. That's from Kenpo now. That's from training in Chuck Sullivan's garage for the last year. I personally enjoy it, but you can't do it on set. You got to be really mindful. So there has to be a very high level of control. So it's tricky. And so it requires hundreds of hours to get your control, to keep your speed up, to make the lines a little bit bigger. So those are a couple of the key differences.
Do you have a hard time actually when you train actors that come with a martial art background to actually do a stunt choreograph, be like, listen, you're going to have to do it this way because of the camera, and you're almost kind of teaching them bad habits in a way. Is it hard for them?
Sometimes, yeah. Like for Gina, for instance, she was a real fighter. So
Yeah.
Gina had to learn a certain amount of control. I'm pretty sure she may have thumped one or two of the stunt guys when we were shooting Haywire.
Oh, God.
But the coordinator was really smart because he brought out veterans who are used to it, who can handle it. You know what I mean? There's stunt guys, and then there's really high level stunt guys, and the higher the budget goes, the better teams you have access to. And so again, I make sure to do that with my stunt team also. You know, the trick is if you do get zung in the face, you get whacked in the nose and there's some blood or whatever, I just don't cut, keep going.
Gotcha.
It's a great sell. Like if you're going to get nailed, get the shot. And that's the difference between a professional and somebody who shouldn't be working in the business. So yeah, there's definitely a certain element of control that needs to be brought in, especially with real fighters. And then the other piece is to go back to your question, when you're dealing with fighters or actors who are martial artists. I'll give you an example. RDJ, Robert Downey, is a serious Kung Fu practitioner. He's been training with a Sifu for many, many years. He moves really, really well. With certain actors who have a thicker background in martial arts, you just lean into their strengths, build the choreography around their strengths, build the script around their strengths and their acting abilities. Everything is based on focusing on their strengths. So it's not difficult to do. You just need to have an honest conversation with them and really, or look at their reel and see what it is that, you know, Gina's a Muay Thai fighter. You know, you look at Haywire, there's going to be a lot of Thai kicks, going to be a lot of elbows. There's going to be a lot of this. There's going to be a lot of clinching. There's going to be a lot of knees, you know, and camera loves it. You know, all striking camera loves. So again, that's why camera loves Kenpo.
Now, was there any particular like move, like basically a choreographed scene that you set up and you thought, oh, this is going to work great. Then when you watch it back, you're like, it's not as good as I thought it was going to be. Have you ever had that kind of happen?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
But fortunately, we have a system in place today in Hollywood because the technology has come far enough where we're able to do what's called a previs for a film, which means that when we get a script from a director and we start working on a piece of fight choreo, or as an actor, if I get a script, I have a movie that I'm about to do right now, and we're shooting my own previs for this thing. So the cool part is being able to take all these skills and just, again, turn it on myself. We'll shoot all of the fights in a training floor similar to the one I'm on right now, my Treehouse Dojo, and based off the script, and we'll set up boxes and we'll set up everything we need here. We'll use airsoft. We don't use blanks. There's no need for it. You don't even need to use that in the film anymore. The CGI is so good now. And what we'll do is we'll shoot out all the fights, and we'll shoot them the best way we can. We'll use all the tricks in the book. We'll use a little camera shake, whatever we need to make them look really, really sexy. And then we'll send those over to the director so that we know we're in the right direction. It saves a lot of time and a lot of money. The work up on a film like John Wick or Haywire or one of these action heavy films, you'll have months. You'll have 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 months. You know, they'll be spending millions of dollars of that budget. Say it's a $40 million film up front, because the more you pump into the previs and the fight prep and the training of the actor, which nobody will, I mean, you just can't get up there and start banging on camera. It doesn't work. You're going to look like shit.
Yeah.
So pre-visit, after several months of training the actors and all the skill sets with me, I don't have to do that training because I've got the styles that I can immediately lean into. We'll start shooting all that previs, start sending that off to the director and the producer so they can see the direction that we're going in, and then make the adjustments based on their vision.
Now, when it comes to weapons, like something like John Wick, and you've got actors coming in who have to handle weapons on screen, how detailed do you get with the reality of the weapon itself, or do you just focus on just specific movements that will be on screen?
Well, with Keanu, in terms of the weapons training, he's had some great coaches. He worked with Aaron Butler for quite some time. Aaron's a multiple world 3-gun champion, shotgun, AR, pistol. So a lot of Keanu's speed with the pistol and with the AR and the shotgun come from Aaron. You know, he's a fantastic trainer. He's got an awesome space. Just north of Los Angeles. the more real, the more actual range time you can get the actor, the better it is for the actor, because they'll be able to translate that into belief when they're shooting blanks. Remember, with blanks, there is no recoil. There isn't going to be the same heightened sense of safety either. Not that blanks aren't dangerous, but obviously you're not using real rounds. So the more real you can make it with the actor, and the more you can get them out to a real range, the better it is, obviously, because they'll take that and they'll be able to just use their imagination. I think one of the most iconic scenes was the alley scene in Collateral. You had Tom Cruise with Michael Mann, in that scene, the movie with Jamie Foxx and Jada Pinkett. That was iconic. That was the first time you saw, a little bit of dumping and from the hip shooting off a self-defense sequence, which is groundbreaking at the time. I think it was 211 or 212, and all of a sudden, man, the whole tactical community was going nuts doing that drill on the range. But a guy like Tom Cruise, if you give him range time, which he got tons of, he's a good enough actor where he'll be able to take all that and dump that right on the day, which is what we call it, and have no problems making that believable. So it's important to try and make their diet as realistic as possible. It just also depends on the amount of time you have to prep an actor. But I try to always get them on the range, and I do a lot of what's called dry fire with them, which is they'll be in a room like this and they'll have a real weapon, but they'll have a safety rod inserted, and all they're doing is manipulating the gun, fixing malfunctions, changing magazines, and doing all of the mechanical body work that leads to the shot. In fact, that's actually more important than the actual shooting. Anybody can pull the trigger. It's what you do leading up to pulling the trigger, which will inform where the round goes. These actors don't actually have to hit the targets. They just need to look good doing it, or look like they know how to hit the targets. So you don't need to fire thousands and thousands of rounds. What you need to do is spend hundreds of hours prepping them in the movement so that they have a lot of intention, which is really what they need. And the more you can nail them in the dry fire room, just getting into the pistol stances, drawing the pistol, clearing the garment, setting up with the rifle, changing the magazine, clearing a malfunction, striking with the weapon. You'll see we want to build confident, cocky weapon handling. That's really what you want. You want that chutzpah, like we say in Hebrew. You want that intention. And in order to get them to a really high level in a couple of months, we treat it like a military training course. This is 8, 10, 12 hours a day. So, the level, that's the difference. Like when you go to a dojo, you get, 2 hours a week. That's why it's, it's 600, 700 hours to get to black belt. It's going to take 4 or 5 years. So imagine taking 600 hours or 700 hours and squeezing that into 3 months. To me, it's always been about mat time. So with the actors, you want to get as much mat time as you can. And we have that luxury because we've got the money to be able to get them in a room like this and just crush them for months. It definitely shows on screen.
Do you have any pet peeves when it comes to movie choreography that you see that you're like, that you would do differently?
Yeah, it's a good one, Dan. A lot of the older stuff that I look at, it doesn't hold up to me. I look at Bruce Lee. I look at some of this older, no disrespect to Bruce. He was a fantastic entertainer. But if you look at the old stuff out there, it doesn't really hold up. It's not like Casino. When you watch Casino, you could drop it anytime in that movie and it's always awesome. Or, pick one of your top 5, right? But when you look at some of the older fight choreo and the lack of technology they had, and the lack of camera trickery, and the lack of training for the stunt guys, the level of the stunt performers has just, it's 2,000 times what it used to be. And when I look at the older stuff, it's a little tough to watch. But, I'm just picky because I've been staring at choreo for so long now. But there's no specific movies. I still love watching Steven Seagal bang. I love watching him throw a Rinanage. I love watching him do a 𝗘𝗫𝗖𝗘𝗧𝗏. I love all, whatever his personal issues and wherever he's at today and where he's trying to put himself in relation to the mixed martial arts world. It's none of my business. I love watching his stuff. I loved watching Jeff Speakman in The Perfect Weapon. Would I love to take a crack at that and try a new way into kenpo? Dan, you're damn right. And I'm going to. So get ready. Because I'm going to try and show as many of the really powerful pieces of kenpo, that settling, that marriage of gravity, all those wonderful things that we love about kenpo, which people question. Wait till we put it on camera. All of a sudden, the question is going to be is where's the nearest kenpo school?
Well, I fully endorse that message.
Yeah.
We'll be talking
Perfect
about
weapon
this
too.
again. We'll be talking about this again as we get closer. to my movie release.
When is it? Do you know what you have?
Yeah, the next picture I'm working on is called Used Mercs, and it's going to go in Vancouver. This will be my first co-starring role. We've got an amazing A-lister attached. I cannot say his name contractually. He's awesome. Everybody knows who this guy is, and you will love him. He's been in major blockbuster movies throughout the 80s, throughout the 90s. And essentially the film is wrapped around a group of ex-mercenaries who open a used car lot.
Oh.
And everything just kind of goes to shit. And half the team ends up joining a kingpin and his crime syndicate. And then the heroes and a couple of the other guys on the good side end up basically slaying all of the kingpin's bad guys, and it's going to be a slaughter festival. My goal is to get the numbers higher than John Wick and just kill as many bad guys as I can. So the more opportunities, more targets of opportunity for more beautiful movement and choreography, hoping it looks good. It's called Used Mercs. So we're supposed to start gassing that up in the next month or two. And I think there may be a bit of a delay just for scheduling, but I'll keep you guys posted as we get closer.
I want to piggyback off that for a second. You talk about knock around as many guys as possible. You made a comment when we talked previously about how it's one thing to make the actor be able to perform their stunts believably, but the other half is making sure that the people that they're working on react accordingly. How important is the reaction from the other stunt actors?
It's almost more important than the talent behind the actor performing the choreography, especially with systems that are striking based like kenpo. Especially with systems that are point of origin strike based, which means you've got clusters of strikes coming in. So it's not just one or two or three hits. You know, Dan, you know better than I do. Once you start grafting, you've got yourself a tornado coming in, and the reactions of the stuntmen are more important than my ability to be able to fire off clusters. And I move my hands really quick. The reactions are everything. I'm only as good as the stunt guy's ability to be able to sell the hits. And with kenpo, it moves so quickly. Chuck told me a really interesting story. Chuck Sullivan, who's my instructor, who I'm fortunate enough to get to train with him every week in his invite-only black belt class. It's been awesome. Chuck's 90. You know, he moves like he's 60, and he's just awesome. But he told me a really interesting story about Parker. Parker, you know, loved acting also, and he liked to be active in Hollywood. And he was a big part of getting Bruce Lee into Hollywood. And, you know, people know, I'm sure your audience knows the stories with the Green Hornet, etc. Parker was the celebrity, you know, karate guy. Everybody, you know, in Hollywood knew who he was. And Chuck told me a story about Ed, about how he'd auditioned for this one project and didn't get hired because he was too fast and the camera couldn't see what he was doing. So my mission is to make sure that I'm bringing all the tools to the table, meaning having the correct trained stunt guys. All of my stunt team are really good kenpo black belts. They're also really good Aikido black belts. I do a lot of big throws and a lot of locks and a lot of dumps. To balance out the striking. There's a sequence to the John Wick eye candy, which I can explain in a minute, which makes people so addicted to John Wick. But the problem is that Parker, they couldn't capture his speed. And I've seen the videos of this guy. I mean, he was incredible. And I figured out how to do it. You just got to have the stunt guys to be able to handle the velocity of the strikes and be able to react to them correctly. And it's many Advils, and it's a lot of rest afterwards, and everybody's getting nicked. Dan, you've been doing kenpo for almost 30 years. You're going to get whacked. It's part of the art. But I figured out how to get kenpo right on camera, and you'll see in the reel, my newest fight reel, which I just released. I've actually got one of my newest stunt team members is AJ Coriato, who's Angelo Coriato's son. I spend a lot of time working out with both of them. AJ's, believe it or not, one of my kenpo coaches. He's 15 years younger than me. He's one of the most talented kenpoists probably in the country, pound for pound at 30. He's a fourth under Trejo and Yosh. I think it's Yosh Faroya, who was a longtime student of Parker. And AJ's phenomenal. But in that 60-second reel that you'll see, it's very similar to the Tom Cruise footage numbers, which is they had to shoot 18, 20 hours of footage for maybe 10 seconds of usable footage. Each one of the fight vignettes that you'll see in my reel is anywhere between 8 and 11 seconds. Those take about 4 hours to do one 10-second vignette. And the reason why is you have to be able to put a lot of craziness into something this big, and the camera has to see it, but the eye has to like it, which means that the shake and the movement has to be correct. The reactions have to be correct. The angles have to be correct. So to get that little 10-second vignette, and I think there's about 12 of them in the fight reel, I think it took us about 3 months to build that, which I'm really proud of, man. That's 60 seconds of hell right there. But again, I specifically lean on really good kenpo black belts, and there's a difference, Dan. There's good black belts and there's less good black belts. The standards in kenpo are kind of all over the place. It's like that with all martial arts. But I've been lucky. Southern California seems to groom some really skilled and talented black belts. I guess this is where it started. So AJ's fantastic, and I've got these Aikido guys also who come from my Aikido lineage, who can just take those break falls. And then when you start mixing in the pistol, it just gets crazy. But the stunt guys are everything. I'm only as talented as the guys reacting to my choreography. I would be nowhere without them.
Now, when you actually start doing the act, like choreographing a scene, do you get you get quickly on the people that they're going to fight against to be part of it, so they can start learning together, or
yes.
Or is it kind of you? Now, do you have people in mind? How do you kind of plan that out, basically?
Well, with my team specifically, if I get brought in for a project, first thing we'll do is we get the script and we'll start designing the choreo in-house, and we'll start prepping it for the actors, so that when the actors do finally show up, I'll have a stunt team member who already has memorized all of their choreography. And then what I'll do is I'll assign that stunt person to the actor. They'll essentially be attached to them as a proctor, if you will. And they'll spend the majority of the prep phase teaching them the choreography. If it's an actor with very limited martial arts training or firearms training, teaching them martial arts. You can see an actress who can't move. I've seen footage from day 1, and I've seen footage from day 90. It's a huge difference. And again, guys, it's all about time on mat. I don't believe, years in the art translates to skill set. It's time on the mat. There's a big disconnect between, I've been doing this for 30 years. No, you haven't. You've been, gotcha. You've been going up the ranks, following the rules for the years. So, and I'm, I've always been a little weird about stripes and ranks. And I think it gets away from the purpose of, meanwhile, here I am with my black belts with my stripes on, like an idiot, telling you that I don't believe in stripes, but you get what I mean? Usually the person who's partnering with the actor, if you're lucky, will be the actual double. And the stunt double, for instance, even Gina had a stunt double, even though she did 99% of her own stunts. She still had a phenomenal stunt double who was there for some of the high falls and some of the riskier stuff. There's, things like burns, things like, tossing a car over. I mean, there's very specialized sections of stunting that the insurance companies just simply will not allow an actor to do unless you're Tom Cruise. Let me just say that Tom Cruise is probably one of the top stunt men in the world. Now, take out his acting. He is one of the top stunt performers in the world. And when you see him hanging off the side of an airplane, as it's taking off with a tiny little clip, a tiny little carabiner with a tiny little, you're like, I don't even know if that's me, dude. I don't even know if I'd be doing it. No, I guess it all just depends, man. You throw enough money at me, anything's possible. Hey, Dan, you'll be on the other side of that plane too, I'm sure. And Zach will be on the tail. For enough zeros.
Dan would be more than happy to throw me out of the plane for money.
Right. In your white bills.
I'm actually...
Yes.
I'm glad you brought up Tom Cruise, because it wasn't the most recent Mission Impossible, during his stunt when he was jumping from one building to another, he actually broke his leg on impact, and he really knew it at the time.
That's right.
He broke it really bad, but he continued the shot. He got up and limped off screen. He finished the shot because he knew that once the camera stopped rolling, they were going to have months off for him to heal.
Yeah, that's right. That's because he is a consummate professional. And let me say this about Tom, and I've never met Tom or worked with Tom, but I've been around people who have been in his camp for many years. And he is not only a consummate professional, but he really is grateful to be able to entertain as a profession. He knows what a gem that is and what a blessing it is. And that's why he is one of the most present actors and producers, man. He's just all about trying to take you for that 90-minute ride. So man, my hat's off to that dude. He's incredible.
Is there a definable difference between a stunt choreographer or a tactical advisor, or like what are the lines between the different positions in action movies?
So the difference between a tech advisor, a tactical advisor, and a fight choreographer and a stunt coordinator, they're all three different pieces. The stunt coordinator is the big dog who comes in and pulls in all the experts. So I'll get the phone call from a stunt coordinator saying, Aaron, I need you to spend time with Keanu. You're the closest thing to the real John Wick. I need you to dump him with guns. I need you to dump him with Aikido. I need you to dump him with a lot of a 𝗘𝗫𝗎𝗪 style striking, and throw in whatever you can to bolster his diet. And the fight choreographers are the guys who are working with the director to assemble the vision of how all that flow is going to work. And they're actually creating the actual storied fights. It's very specific. This is what we want it to be. This is how long it's got to be. Putting the actor through what the final bit of choreo is going to be, or whatever's closest to it, before they make the final decision. The tactical trainers and the martial arts instructors, we're the ones getting them to the level so that they can be able to add new tools to the skill set. What happens is the lines get blurred. And the reason why is because we all end up kind of collaborating and working together. And as we find nuggets, like on Haywire, for instance, with Carano, I started playing with a term that I call gunjitsu. And gunjitsu is essentially a fight style that I accidentally slipped on when I went, wouldn't it be cool to start putting guns into martial arts to make a full system of shooting, striking, throws? And that is the algorithm for the types of films that I work on. And what will end up happening is as I'm dumping pieces of nectar onto the actor, teaching them different pieces, usually the fight choreography is there. Usually the stunt coordinator is going, love it, brother. Let's do more of that. And so what's happening is they're filming, they're taking notes, and they'll start assembling that fight choreography based on all those nuggets and tactics that they're getting dumped with. So the 3-gun will fall in there. The concealed carry training, which I did for Keanu, will fall in there. Some of the martial arts that I ended up doing with Keanu will fall in there. There's pre-war Aikijitsu, which is my first black belt. It's back in the mid-90s. Traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, which is a very close cousin of Aikido or Aikijitsu, or Judo, very similar, just bigger lines. You'll see a lot of Aikido in Wick 2 and Wick 3. You'll see some Silat get brought in on 3 and some of 4. You'll see a lot of Judo in 3. That came from the Eastern European stunt trainers. Judo and Eastern Europe is just, that's their sport. You got Taekwondo in Korea. You've got Judo in Russia. So it becomes this kind of mix of collaboration. I wasn't the fight choreographer on John Wick, but I had a very heavy influence on Keanu's tactical diet for all the different pieces that I could bring to the table. And like I said, we were all sort of handpicked to create the brain trust of the movement. And then the fight choreographer ends up deciding with the director how they're going to stack everything together and build it out. But the lines are blurred. It's all pretty close, but it's fun because you get to collaborate with some really, talented guys.
So I think we'd like to end off this one with just a quick little fun question. Okay. What are your 2 favorite martial arts movies? One that you like for the story, and one that's your guilty pleasure.
Oh God, I thought I read that one. I went, fuck, I don't know what I don't know what my favorite movies are. I'm like, man, give me Above the Law. Give me that first scene. Give me that first scene at Seagal's Real Dojo in West Hollywood where they shot him and Matsuoka Sensei. He used to break his back for Seagal to get those action sequences right. It was the first time we saw Aikido, and it was such an odd looking, gorgeous looking, way of moving. That's one that I'll always lean on. I don't particularly love the film. I'm a little pickier with storyline, but at the time I thought that was really good. And I still think that he moved incredible. And was it, whatever you say about Seagal, was a legitimate Aikido master, Aikijitsu master. And camera loved it. One of the other big action ones, I like to shoot him stuff too, man. I like Black Hawk Down. I like the really gritty war stuff. I like that visceral, coming up the beach in Private Ryan, that stuff hits me. I like it when it's really, really real when it comes to the weapons. But I'm going to say for the martial arts, it's probably Above the Law. I'm going to come back to you on the second video on that one right there. I need to think about that a little more. I'm not showing my hand yet. What are yours? Dan, what are your 2 favorites?
Oh, well, my favorite for story is hands down Karate Kid. I'm not even going to debate that. Guilty pleasure, probably just for fun martial arts films I had growing up, would probably be Mortal Kombat and Ninja Turtles, the movie, the original one.
Not bad. I got one, though. I'm going to throw one at you. I loved as a kid, I'm gonna call this the guilty pleasure one. By the way, love the Karate Kid, huge fan. Like I said, I'm gonna be muscling my way into the spinoff of Cobra Kai. If they spin off on Kreese, I'm gonna be harassing those producers to let me play the colonel or major who made John Kreese as nuts as he is. I want to play that guy in Vietnam. I'm putting that on my vision board behind me. That doesn't exist. My guilty pleasure, I'm going to say the Sho Kazuki ninja films. I loved all that stuff, man. I love the throwing stars. I love the darts. I love the swords coming out. I love the taijutsu. Loved me a little balaclava with the little outfit. I loved American Ninja, man. I love the Cannon Group. You know, those Israeli guys who produced all that schlock, you know, in the 80s. I loved all that stuff. They made a ton of money off it just because no one had seen it. And I liked Michael Dudikoff. I liked American Ninja. I love a good ninja film. I do. I'm a total ninja nerd. Love Dudikoff. Yeah, you know, he wasn't you know, by any stretch of the means a gifted martial artist, but I think he did really good for the amount of time he had to prep that thing. So, I loves me an old school ninja film. Guilty pleasure.
A great big thank you to Aaron Cohen for spending his time with us today and giving us such a rich and detailed look behind the scenes that most of us don't get to see. Please be sure to check out his YouTube channel for more of his work. I have the link down in the description below. And he will also be returning on a show soon to discuss Kenpo and whether or not it will actually work in real life. You're not going to want to miss that one, so please subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that when the episode goes live, you know it. We will see you next week. Same Matt time, same Matt channel.